Hey y'all, and welcome to the next episode of my Europe trip. Today's going to be history overload, so I hope you're prepared. Let's just get right into it. We woke up the next morning and went down for breakfast. And let me just say, an English breakfast is kinda whack. Apparently, baked beans are a breakfast delicacy, along with boiled tomatoes. But then they also had traditional breakfast cuisine like eggs, hash browns, fruit, bread, and what they call Canadian bacon, which, let's be honest, was a slice of fried ham. Not bad, but not the same as American bacon. Oh, and of course they served tea. After breakfast, we met up with our group and set out for the London Eye. If you search pictures of the London skyline, chances are you'll eventually scroll past one that features a giant Ferris wheel sitting just opposite Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament. And this is the Millennium Wheel. Officially opened on December 31st, 1999, the London Eye was built to celebrate the new millennium. The 394-foot diameter wheel signifies the turn of a new century, as well as provides magnificent views of the London cityscape.
Go forward, guys, mind your step.
It was a 30-minute round trip in total, and I was able to get some neat panoramic pictures of London. After that, we continued to sightsee throughout the city and walked through St. James Park, which houses Buckingham Palace. We couldn't get close because they were still cleaning up the remnants of Queen Elizabeth's 70th Jubilee, but as far as I could tell, it was still pretty magnificent. Now looking back on it, it's crazy to think that summer was the last summer Queen Elizabeth would be alive. I'm just so honored that I was able to step onto England's soil while she still had the throne. R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth, you're the GOAT. Shortly after, we were sauntering back through the park for our midday meal. We ate at the Red Lion Pub, and they served us the classic English dish, fish and chips. It was pretty good. It tasted just like it sounds. Fried cod with potato wedge chips alongside lime pea mash and tartar sauce. Tasted British for sure. Then they served us fudge brownie with ice cream. Delish. Fueled fully with fish, we set out to our next historic stop, the Churchill War Rooms. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the history, the Churchill War Rooms were essentially an underground bunker where Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and his war cabinet would meet during air raids during World War II. In these rooms, generals and military leaders discussed tactics and strategies to move the war forward. This is the room where it happened, y'all. The entire museum was modeled how it would have been on October 15th, 1940 at precisely 3 minutes to 5. This was just a few hours before a bomb would crash through and blow up the broadcasting house of central London, and only a month into the lethal German bombing campaign known as the Blitz, which would run into May the following year. The museum was full of rooms and wax statues that represented important figures who were part of the rooms. It was neat being able to step into time and absorb the intensity of being constrained underneath a 5-foot thick metal slab of protection. After the war rooms, we killed time in Trafalgar Square, where the National Gallery is located. The large art museum had a giant ice cream cone with a fly and drone stuck in it. I'm still trying to decipher what the meaning of that one was. And then I went inside and made it my mission to take as many selfies with artwork as possible. I was quite literally shocked when I recognized paintings I had studied in school or online, but now encountered the real deal. But I also came across works of art that I had never seen before and loved. I wandered into one section of the museum where a decapitation theme seemed highly popular. They were beautiful paintings, but rather grotesque. The artists were trying to keep it exciting, I guess. Afterwards, we grabbed some food and went out to our evening outing, which was to watch Les Mis. And it was just as good as Phantom of the Opera, if not better. By the end of the performance, literally everyone was in tears, myself included. And ever since watching both of those musicals, I have been completely addicted to the soundtracks. We rode the subway back to the hotel to get a few hours of shut-eye before the next morning. And being a running fanatic myself, I pledged to run in every single country I visited just to say that I did it. So the next morning, Mr. Johnson scheduled an early morning run for the running addicts in our group. And I could not have passed up the opportunity. Hey guys, it is currently 7:40 in the morning, and we are running in London. Woo! We ran a few miles up and down the Thames River before getting back to the hotel to wash up and eat. Our first tour of the morning would be the Tower of London. After William the Conqueror claimed the throne upon defeating King Harold II at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, the first thing he did was build a giant castle to act as a gateway to England's capital, as well as protect from potential revolt. Nothing had ever been seen in England like it before, and he dubbed his mighty fortress the White Tower. Throughout the centuries, it has served many purposes. Up until the 17th century, the tower served as a luxurious royal residence. Arms and armor were manufactured and stored here, and for some time it also supplied the nation's money. All coins of the realm were made at the Tower Mint up until 1810. Kings and queens also locked away their priceless possessions and valuables within the walls, and even to this day, the tower is home to the crown jewels. We walked through the Jewel House in the Tower of London, and I just remember there being billions of wealth in those vaults, ranging anywhere from jewel-infused crowns to golden punch bowls up to 450 years old. They didn't allow me to take video in there for good reason, but it was still pretty incredible. The Tower of London, however, also has a dark history. During the Wars of the Roses, King Edward IV's two children and heirs to the throne vanished within the walls in 1483. It was nearly 2 centuries later when 2 skeletons were found buried beneath a staircase, the alleged murderer being their uncle, Richard III. In 1533, Henry VIII prepared a splendid feast before the coronation of his new bride, Anne Boleyn. And 3 years later, on the same estate, she was executed, accused of committing adultery. For a time, we went up to the imprisonment tower, where they had preserved carvings that prisoners had etched into the wall while they had been in custody. Nowadays, the tower is one of the world's leading tourist attractions and known for the ravens that watch over the grounds. Legend has it that if the ravens leave the tower, both it and the kingdom will fall. With a break in between tours, we cruised Piccadilly Circus, which is essentially the Times Square of London, checking out shops and stores along the streets. We geeked out over an authentic red telephone booth and walked past the Globe Theatre. Being a Shakespeare fanatic myself, I nearly peed my pants when I saw it. The Globe Theatre has burnt down 7 times, once from a misfired cannon and another time from a lightning strike. So it was by no means the original, but it was still really cool. At one point, we stopped in a grocery store because Ella claimed that strawberries taste different in Europe. And they actually did. They were a lot smaller and sweeter, and they almost melted in your mouth like cotton candy, which I'm not sure if we just got a bad batch, but it was certainly an experience. The coolest store we passed was an all-American store, which had shelves upon shelves of colorful packaged junk food. There were things in there that I had never even heard of. We're in an American candy store right now.
What is that?
Oh, okay. That's great.
Guys, this is quite literally the best day of my life. I found carrot cake Oreos.
Soon we grabbed some grub at a pub that sold wood-fired pizza. Fun fact, I remember specifically everyone in the restaurant was eating their pizza with forks and knives. Apparently in Europe, finger food is a no-go. Then we made our way to St. Paul's Cathedral. I was blown away by the beauty of the architecture and detail of the artwork. Ever since 604 AD, the land that St. Paul's Cathedral sits on has been consecrated, but the cathedral itself was finished in 1711. It was designed by Britain's most famous architect at the time, Sir Christopher Wren, who clearly displayed his talent in this masterpiece. The cathedral is full of vivid mosaics, sculpture, painting, and is home to the second largest dome in the world, at 366 feet high. The pillars that support this massive hemisphere hold 67,000 tons of architecture and art. When Sir Wren died 13 years later, he was buried in the crypts with a Latin inscription on his tomb saying, "Reader, if you seek a monument, look about you." The cathedral was clearly the pride and joy of his creations. It was also beloved by London and acted as an inspiration to British people during World War II. As London was grotesquely pounded by bombs, the historic buildings around the city were reduced to rubble. But St. Paul's Cathedral miraculously escaped major bomb damage. A lot of the credit goes to volunteer fire watchers who would patrol the corridors night and day to douse any fire before it caused damage. At one point, a bomb crashed through the roof, smashing the altar, but was quickly disarmed and removed by the watch who had volunteered that night. When the war finally ended in 1945, St. Paul's bells rang out to celebrate liberation, and post-war church services were attended by 35,000 people. Come to think of it, this could make a pretty neat blockbuster one day. Stay tuned. Many more secrets were revealed about the cathedral. For the first half of the 20th century, Britain's mass-produced goods dominated world trade, and also gave way to terrible air pollution. We walked past a slab of stone that showed how all the soot had greatly discolored the cathedral. In 1965, efforts were made to remove the grime, which had in some places become 4 inches thick. Because of this, the cathedral has been transformed into the gleamy white building it is today. We were also led to a spiral staircase that has been used to film scenes in movies, including Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban and Paddington 2. That was mind-blowing. When our guided tour was finished, we climbed 528 steps to the top of the dome itself. There was a stop that let you look into a window in the floor that lined up directly with the center of the cathedral floor, 360 plus feet below. Soon we made it to the top and outside to survey a breathtaking view. This had probably been the favorite place that we visited so far on the trip. We spent our last evening in London watching Hamilton, which was an absolute blast. We got back that night and prepared for the day ahead, which would be a massive travel day. Within 24 hours, we will have arrived in France. To recap my overall impression of London, most of the time it felt like I was in an alternate reality. It seemed like almost a futuristic city, and yet it still preserved its ancient history. I think the Industrial Revolution of London as well as World War II were catalysts to push London to become more ecologically friendly and take better care of the land they inherited. I felt like my eyes were opened a little wider to the world, and I was excited to see what more I would learn as we delved deeper into Europe.